Is it Sienna?
Sarah.
Sarah, I'm sorry. Sarah Jackson?
Yes.
Please, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I don't know if I need to be standing or sitting.
No, please sit.
Okay. I'm here tonight in regards to the drop-off situation at the Lansing schools. I have had some difficulty with picking up kids in the afternoon and evening, but I have just recently started working with a carpool group to drop off my older children in the morning. And it is gridlock out there frequently, if not always. We've only been in school for a little over a week, and I've already had multiple incidences where I personally was almost in an accident, or I have been delayed severely from getting home. And I have little children at home. Now, other people I recognize need to head to work, and that's urgent. But I need to get home to relieve my daughter or my college-age daughter or my husband so that they can go to work and I can watch my little kids before they get on the bus. And it is not acceptable to me to be late getting home and either delaying my husband from his job or leaving my little children ages 10, 7, and 4 alone in my house. So forgive me for the intensity of my tone as I speak about this. As I pondered the situation, I thought about a few solutions that may potentially help, and I'm not sure how much of a priority this is to the committee or the town at this time. I will say that I did call the highway department one day on my way home to question when the road behind the middle school will be fixed. It seems to me if that was fixed, I recognize it's kind of a treacherous path there, but we have the technology today and engineering know-how, I think, to put that road in a position where it could be usable and it would divert the traffic tremendously, not just for the residents who live to the north of the community, but also I live in the southern part of the community, and I can go behind the high school and come out Brickyard and head home. And I think that would alleviate a lot of the traffic tremendously. Other than that, the only solutions I could think of was potentially putting a traffic light in there, which allows for traffic to flow on Ridge Road, is it east and west? There for the majority of the day, and then during the hours of drop-off and pickup, it regulates the traffic a little bit more. Thirdly, the last solution I could think of was tying up some time from our police officers to direct the traffic out there. Now, I know that economics play into this, and I'm not really sure where that fits in the community and what can be done about it. But those were the thoughts that I had. I would appreciate to know where this lies in the relationship of priority for the town and its needs. Because for my needs and for my children's needs, for our safety, and I'm guessing from other parents who I've spoken with, it is a great concern and a priority to them as well. I'm not sure how many people have come to speak about it yet, but I'm here today to share.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Sarah, as you know, the provision floor really isn't a back and forth right now, even though there is a 2-minute comment period for board members. What I would recommend, though, is if you feel comfortable giving me your email address, and I'll make some inquiries to what can be done there, perhaps.
Okay.
In the future, I can't guarantee anything. I know that Snake Hill, I think that's one you're making reference to, that is the least point. And we are working on a feasibility study, at least right now, to find out what the cost of that would be to reopen that. And that's critical to understand. There's also the state road, so that's problematic for the town. But on the other hand, like I said, we will explore different options. And do you feel comfortable writing down your email address here?
Absolutely.
And obviously, we'll keep it private and we'll try to get to you. Okay, like I said, this is privilege of floor. So if you want to make a comment afterwards, Griff, when you have a moment, you can do that. So if you want to just write up here, Sarah, what your email address is for me, please.
Sure. At this moment in time?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yeah.
And does anybody else have privilege of floor? I think, Dennis Griffin, do you want to come forward?
Sure, and I don't need a PA system.
Yeah, but the microphone
Sarah?
microphone at home lets people at home hear you as well.
Oh, yes, I got that. Your name is Sarah?
Yes, sir.
Sarah, I work for the transportation department at the school district. and my boss and I have been discussing this. Tomorrow morning, there will be a state trooper on the scene to look over things. It is our worry. We know that there's going to be an accident, and it's been bothering us for the last few months. So we are addressing it. The trooper's going to come down, they're going to look it over, and then she's going to meet with her sergeant, and we're going to try to get some game plans. We are trying everything. We see that every morning. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to use this time to go to the floor? If not, we'll move on. That's item 5 in your packet, which is department reports. We have the library report. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that? Commissioner Liaison?
No, they're doing an excellent job of getting back to normal, quote unquote, and it's highly used, yeah. They had a successful book sale. Things are doing well.
Good, thank you. Next comes the Tonkins County Legislative Report, Mike Zigler. Mike Zigler was instrumental in putting the crosswalk in on Ridge Road, and maybe Mike Zigler could be instrumental in helping you with something else down there.
Go build a little road. If you guys would let me join with the heavy trucks, that would be great. Hi, so thanks for having me again. I haven't written this up yet, so I will do that. I got behind the curve this week. So, but lots to talk about really. We're in budget season, as you know. We are moving right along with that we have heard from pretty much every department now. Your tax rate will go down. Sorry if that's cold comfort, considering most of the assessments went up. So that's why we're able to do that. But we are going to keep spending under control. We are going to do some OTRs now. We're going to see what comes in. But there is a lot of things that are kind of on the agenda for us to do. Last night's meeting, for example, we have this greening of the Tompkins County offices and things like that. That was slated for $7 million. The costs have increased substantially, and now they're up to $14 million. However, for this phase 1, the phase 1 stuff is pretty low-hanging fruit. It's stuff that you would want to do anyway, just to save energy and to save costs. And if energy continues to go up as it is, then this would be something we would want to do anyway. And we kind of want to lock this in now before rates go up any higher. I mean, rates are going up again today, and I think they're going to raise rates again. So we're trying to get the bond out before they go up any further. So we want to lock in some prices. So that's why we're moving ahead with that. Also, there's a bunch of different tranches of money right now that are just kind of floating out there, and we're kind of determining what we're going to do with them. The opioids, for example, that settlement money is coming in. What do we do with that? So we're thinking maybe an opioids task force. Other larger counties have these. We just want the task force to be effective, right? We just don't want to put it there and then kind of wallow in it. So that's what we're working on now. The Community Recovery Fund, which is the COVID money that we got, that's moving along pretty well. So that's a little over, it's like $6.5 million now. People are going to start applying for that money. They're going to get graded, and then we're going to pick which are the best proposals. So that's kind of where we're at with that. That is open now. So if you go to the Tompkins County website, you'll be able to find like how to apply for that money. There are different levels of funding and things like that. We are going to have a public forum coming up. It's going to be a virtual public forum. That too is at the website. But that is, let's see, we're going to host a virtual public forum. It's going to be on the 2023 budget, and it's at 7 p.m. on September 27th. So it's coming up. We're going to give you a brief overview of the budget. If you have any questions, you can ask it there. And again, it is virtual. But just go to the Tompkins County website, and you'll find out more information about it there. I have asked for this. I've asked for this before. Heating oil, to me, is an essential. It's a lot like food. You live in upstate New York, you're going to have to heat. So like heating oil, natural gas, it would be nice to be able to do it for electric, but I don't think that's possible just because it's broken up in a weird way. And wood. I personally don't think we should collect sales tax on those things. So I'm putting in again to say we should not put sales tax on those heating sources. The cost is about $2.5 million, $2.2 million if we do that. I'm not thinking we're going to cut that from the budget. I think we're going to put it on the property tax. So it's really kind of a shift. But I think it's important, because I think it's an essential. We don't tax food. There's a reason why, because you need food to live, and it's the same thing with heat. So I've put that forward. We'll see where it goes. We're like the only county in like 13 county radius that actually taxes that. And I think we haven't pulled it before because of the cost. So that's what we're waiting on there. Interesting ideas have come up. Policing, as you know, downtown, it's a problem. Crime is a problem downtown. I saw a friend of mine from high school, actually, just randomly on the Commons, and she was dropping her daughter off at the ILR school. And we're getting to talking, and she's like, listen, we've been told she shouldn't really go downtown at night. And I was like, well, she's like, how much truth is that? I'm like, well, we grew up out of New York City, so we've been to the city. I said, same rules basically apply as that. But it's interesting that that's the first thing that Cornell parents are now hearing is don't go downtown Ithaca. So if Ithaca doesn't think it has a policing problem, which I think it does think that, and it's not all because of reimagining, but it's a part of it. It's a part of it because of how it was handled at the very beginning. There is an ethics board, as you all may know, investigating that. Some of the documentation has gone online now at the Tonkins County website, that it's responses from the different members of the reimagining campaign and their responses to these ethics complaints that were filed by Cynthia Brock downtown. So that is now on the website as well. And the big issue that this is kind of brought up too for some people is EMS response. Roarden Hart out of Trumansburg, as you know, they have EMS service out there. He is seeing a lot of that EMS service now responding to the city because they're the backup for the city. The city's getting taken up by all these different calls now. His EMS is responding to there, and it's leaving, not just Trumansburg, he covers like that whole side of the lake. The coverage has gotten too much now. And so now we're looking at maybe how can the county step in and kind of help with that. One idea, which I think is interesting, is it's called a fly car. It's basically you get a call, it's somebody, and when I was on an emergency, I used to run ambulances when I was in high school. The call would go out. Somebody usually did go right to the scene, because that's the big thing. If you're having a stroke, you want to see somebody right away. The sooner you get a response, the better your outcome is going to be. So that's the idea of this fly car. And it would be somebody that literally responds to the scene immediately and gives, and has some something to be able to help the person with it too, obviously. But you got to remember, with a fly car, it's not just one person, it's 5 people. You need it 24/7. So that's what we're working on, I think. And it's an interesting direction ahead, and it's certainly something that the county, I think, can do and wants to do. So we'll see if we can get there. Part of the problem, too, is the jungle. It is attracting a lot of people. We're talking about different ways to solve that. One of those, I'm going to go for a tour, hopefully on Friday, of the jungle with a police officer. Somebody died there about 3 days ago. I mean, granted, people die in the city all the time, but obviously if they're homeless and they die, it gets noticed a little bit more. Somebody has built a house down there. It's literally a house, with a blue tarp on top. It's a shanty, and the city doesn't seem to want to kind of deal with that. They're thinking, no, we're going to build this homeless encampment, which that's fine, I suppose. I've seen it done in other cities. The problem is then they're going to say we're not going to allow camping anywhere else in the city, and I don't think that's true. I don't know. They don't have the manpower to do that, or woman power, however you want to state it, but they don't have the people to kind of enforce that kind of law. So, and frankly, I think people are going to camp where they want to camp. So the city, I don't think that's a great solution. A better solution, and I'll wrap up with this. There is more. There's 3 more things. Mental health stabilization unit. I called Dutchess County. We had a big meeting about this. This would be a good idea. It'd be a very expensive idea, but it's a good idea, and it's something I think we probably should do. We have a mental health crisis in this country. We need to have a system where if we pick somebody up who's having a mental health crisis, sure, if they've committed a crime, we'll prosecute them for the crime later, but we've got to get that person stable, and the jail really isn't equipped to do that. Even if we revise the jail, which we might do, because I'll get to that in a second, we don't want to just send them to the hospital either, to the emergency room. This is a very specific kind of thing. It's a mental health stabilization unit. We taught the Dutchess. The nice thing about Dutchess is, too, they've got showers right there in the building, too. So say you're on the street, you're homeless, you go in, you can take a shower, you can wash your clothes. It's not, it's to stabilize the whole person. And it's a good idea. and Duchess is having great success with it. So that's kind of where I'm pushing before we do anything really with the jungle. I think that's kind of has to happen first. That brings us to the jail. We went out, I took a tour with Sheriff Osborne and with Rich John. We went out to Shenango County, toured their jail. There's a pod system, very effective. You can watch a lot of people with one person. We have staffing issues all the time at the jail. You can also break up different kinds of charges. Like if somebody has serious charges, you can put them in one section in the same pod as other people. And you can do it multiple pods. You can have one pod for women, one pod for men. You can maybe make the pod for women a little smaller. If you have enough money, you can do a third pod for juveniles. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. I don't think we need that, but it's an effective system. We're down to 40 people in the jail. A pod system actually would work quite well compared to what we have now. We have a very dated jail right now, and it's something we're going to have to address in the next 5 years. I'm going to close with two things. TCAT, good news. We were having a little struggle with our other partners in that. Cornell came up with, to give them credit, I think, it was kind of like you had two sides kind of talking past each other, and then Cornell kind of laid it out a different way, and I was like, okay, that way does make sense now. It did before, the way you were describing it now. So now we have an agreement, which is good. So TCAT is safe, and it really came down to if there's a shortfall at TCAT, all three partners want to pick up that equally. The county doesn't want to be left hanging with no other partner paying the bill, and the other two sides finally agreed to that. Lastly, redistricting, we voted on that. There's going to be 16 people on the county legislature instead of 14. I don't know what's better or worse, to be honest with you. We had a commission. The commission put this together. I did not weigh in during the commission because I didn't want to seem like it was pushing it one way or the other. I don't know. We'll see. 16 is a good number, I guess. 14 was a good number. Some people want an odd number. Some people think we should have gone smaller. I don't. But that's where it's going to be for the next 10 years. So we'll have 16 people. And that's it. I think that's it. There's always more. Community media. Airport, we can go on for days.
Oh, wait, there's more. Okay.
Why, you have questions?
Any questions for Mike?
I have a quick question about the redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to affect Lansing's districts, kind of the districts within our borders?
So,
where do we land?
I get moved a little further north.
Okay.
Or I shouldn't say I mean.
Your spot.
The district that
Right.
is Lansing.
Yeah.
Gets moved a little further north, so it's like one side of water wagon now.
Okay.
But it's still, it's weird though in a way, because Hillside isn't, I think, a part of it anymore, which it used to be, but Rocco Lucenti's buildings up there, the Lucenti, I shouldn't call them Rocco's, but the Lucenti properties up there, I think still are. So I said, why can't they give me the airport too? Why not? I would have loved to have an airport. And I think Deb's district, they move a little bit further south, so she kind of goes into the city a little bit.
Okay.
Or not the city, but the town. She goes into
The town.
The nice thing about the redistricting is the districts that are in the city will kind of mirror the wards. So
Makes sense.
I think that might have been part of the goal of this. Some people say, why are we adding? Well, we're one of the only counties upstate too that's adding population. So do we need, then you go to Onondaga County where each member represents 30,000 people. I don't know. It seems like people in Tonkins demand good representations. That's what we will give them. They let us. So.
Okay, any other questions for Mike?
Do you move into Groton more, or you're staying basically at the?
No, but Groton's moves, so that's the other thing. The one that Lane is representing, that becomes a little more, not Groton-y, but that side of Dryden. It becomes more, I think Martha's old one, which is Greg Messer now, that kind of moves, what would that be? Moves more toward the village of Dryden. And then that vacuum then is kind of filled by Mike Lane's, or what Mike Lane's would have been. Because hers was kind of wonky, it kind of cut in there, and that's what they kind of eliminated. So his becomes more competitive, I would say. Lee's is much more Groton, a little bit of Dryden, less Lansing. So, yeah, out here it doesn't do too much. The city, I think, is where, because we're picking up 2 seats, where are those 2 seats?
Okay. Those 2 seats are basically city seats?
Yes, but I think town of Ithaca's growing as well.
Okay.
People always forget, the city's not that big. Town is where a lot of it is. And we'll see, I mean, gosh, they are, I mean, so Rich John's district, for example, which is really considered a very college district, they're building, that Green Street Garage project is going to have 200 affordable housing units. That's 200 families. I mean, that's a lot to add to a district. So they couldn't redistrict based on what's going to happen either. So that was something to keep in mind. But we kind of know that it's going to happen. So it's like, while it may not seem like, why are you adding another person? Yeah, I don't know. Population, they're building here. They're still putting up housing.
Okay. Thank you.
And, you know, Lansing Carnival this weekend, very exciting. There's going to be a lot of people at the parade and at the carnival. So I encourage people to go. I am excited. All right?
I'll see you there.
The Salt and Pepper Shake. One year it was closed with a bungee cord. I don't even want to go there, but it's fun. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Harry report, Michael.
Fun, that.
Well, it's fantastic. Somehow I got it for the past, the first time, I don't know how. Ever. Hey, Debbie. Oh, cookies. Oh.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My report's in front of you. I added a couple things that I forgot. Line striping on certain roads was performed. We struggled with that last year due to availability of paint and really timing. Myers Road, I really want to try to get done. And a couple people said, interesting how the bridge opened and the road's painted now, and it's really just availability of the paint and timing. So, Trip Hammer Terrace and Hillcrest, we've had, I think, at least 3 or 4 different accidents there. It's not a line of sight issue. We've trimmed. It's really driver error. Someone tried to beat a UPS truck. I think that was told by a volunteer, volunteer firefighter. I think Mrs. Najera wasn't paying attention and just drove through it. But anyhow, we installed, there's a total of 2 stop signs on either side of the intersection now, along with stop bars. So, hopefully that gets people's attention. You can't fix when people aren't paying attention when they're driving, but try to help. Within that, if anybody has any questions, the sewer meter at Niagara Drive is a big accomplishment for us. This is huge.
Well done.
Very, very happy that's done. That's something that was required since 2018, I think, if I'm right, per the agreement with the Big Six. It's beautiful. Catherine and Matt Muskin are very happy, as far as I know, and they're gracious enough to let us put the meter pit there on their property. Brent Cross and Mike Weiss are both aware. We might just be waiting to kick on the power, but pretty much everything's in and ready to go. Honestly, there's no new updates with Stoughton Engineering. I know Donnie's been after Stoughton. Donnie from TG Miller's been after Stoughton Engineering.
Yes, Snake Road.
Regarding Crooked Hill, Ludlow Road.
Same thing, right?
I believe you guys, the board had asked, good Lord, maybe back in April, spring at some point, that we get another engineering firm in to work with TG Miller in order to maybe do core samples and investigate and see what the 3 different options I think you guys had asked. Walking it back, opening it back up, and then obviously if it doesn't open, there's still going to be a cost. So I'll ask Donnie to lean on them some more and see where we're at. Obviously, we're creeping towards the end of September. The open house, I think it went well. We had like 75 to 100 people. Young and old. There was an older woman who stopped in just to say thank you, and we did a great job. Mrs. Toby was there from the Bound Fort Hill. And a lot of kind words, you know, a lot of hugs. It was super nice to see the community in that capacity, honestly. Some would think there'd be more, maybe there'd be less, but you know, it was a nice turnout, honestly, I thought. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, I got a quick one. Where are we in terms of paving? How far are you in the process? I see you've been doing a lot of it. Are we almost done? Are we halfway done? Where approximately?
Oh, like in my report says, we're pretty much on schedule and completed. There would be, you know, possibly Drake Road, I would do from Vinegar Creek to the State Road, but it's a time thing. Today we just tried to be patching and there's 25 trucks at the plant. So that's over a 2-hour wait. It's about a 3-hour wait just to get left. So,
Wow.
And the day before we did municipal work with Cuba County. So that was kind of rainy and yucky. Anyway. You know, really it's just patching things together for winter. The main line paving's done with the exception of possibly 1,152 feet of Drake Road.
Wow.
So.
I hear you're going to have a heavy winter this year. Or we're gonna-
Come on, be nice.
I'm not arranging it, there's just what I hear. And I see you're preparing for it in the budget as well, and, you know,
Yes.
that's important. And I do want to point out that I've noticed that you've been making notes on some of the vouchers, saying I tried these different, I tried to get extra quotes on things and things like that. And I appreciate that, and I just want you to know that I'm actually reading those and appreciate them being there, because it helps leave a paper trail to say that you're doing your due diligence, and I just want to appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to you doing the mulching of the various ditches at some point this fall.
Yep. You know, if the weather cooperated a little bit with us, I'd push off soil and water.
That's a big if right now.
So, but yeah, we have two ditch projects, like I think I told you that.
Yeah.
Need to get done, so. Anything
Any
else?
other questions for? All right, so, the no parking signs have been put down in Local.
Yes.
That's 1/7 of the page.
Yep.
We'll talk about it later. Working on the budget.
Yep.
One of the things I'll propose to the board, a couple of things is that we're supposed to present the budget to you tonight and go over this on a week from now. And we have until the 5th to present the budget to you, which is what I'll do. Because we've been in lockdown for a week at office. And our two, I call them B-squared, our two bookkeepers have been phenomenal, but they've been away for a week. And so now Charmaine, which we have in the bullpen, we're going to call her in and we're going to write this out. Keep in mind though, if you're going to give the budget to you tonight, you have a week. I'll give it to you the 5th, we'll discuss on the 19th, so you have 2 weeks. One of the strategies is to use some of our reserve money that we just sit there, right, to pay for equipment. That frees up your DA and DB money so that in case you do have to do more snow plowing, because if you look at your supervisor's report, we see we don't have much for snow removal. And I don't know how, you know, get out the Bibles. Hopefully we'll have a calm November, December. But, and I'll also point out in the budget mods, that's $100 grand we're blowing through the budget mods. We've already tapped out on the attorney fees, okay? Keep all these things in mind. So the strategy is to use some of these reserves for equipment and things to free up this money in the DBA for other things we need down the road, because if it's in a reserve fund, we can't touch it unless it's for things. If we pay that for machinery or whatever, it keeps the balances higher. That doesn't mean we're going to spend the money. You have more flexibility. Very similar to what the county has done with the what do I want to say, COVID money. Right? Did the same thing. They freed it up. So keep that in mind as we try to be a little bit more flexible here and make sure that our DBs are higher, our DAs are higher, amongst other things, and see where things go, like the rec truck or the code officer truck, which will be eventually paid for by the D fund, even though it's going to have to go through the highway, right? Because you're the ones that have the buying potential, right? You have all the things in place.
Yeah, through,
And we're researching that with guys, see if that's legal. Amongst other things. And of course, that'll be one of the things when it comes back from catching the great white one. See where we are. So these are different strategies that we're playing with right now to make sure we have much flexibility with what is possible. You're doing a fantastic job, plus you're one person short.
true, yes, we're lucky. So,
Other than that, Mr. Lincoln, how do you like to play, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
We're all good.
Thank you.
Moving on. Park and Rec. The other cousin. Okay, my friend.
Good evening. I'll keep mine short because I know Mrs. Munson likes that much better. All of our fall sports are going very well. A couple things at the park. We're going to have camping through Columbus Day, which we typically have. The watch fire was last Friday. Very good event. If none of you have ever attended, I encourage you to attend. Although they may be, the group that doesn't may be not doing it next year, but we'll have a group that will do it. Suicide prevention walk took place a couple Saturdays ago. Good turnout for that. And trunk or treat, I got official word this week, will be on Halloween.
Super. What an ingenious idea. Not that part, the ingenious idea of the trunk and treat. I have my utmost respect for people who came up with that idea. I think
That's great.
it's ingenious. If you've ever been to one of those,
It's a great event.
It is a great event, and some of these displays are very clever.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else?
Any questions?
Anything for Pat?
Sure, I'll just start off with, the town board received a nice letter praising you and your crew for, and I can't pronounce this person's name, Raid Shalabi.
Oh, Riyadh Shalabi. Yes.
Thank you. He was very appreciative of the work you guys did and helped his event become successful, and it's really a joy to see those kind of letters come in.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best events I've ever been part of. It was really great. It made a lot of money for a lot of good causes. So.
Excellent, and it shows your staff and your office being really helpful to the community, and that's always a great thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't anticipate doing so much work. We kind of scrambled and pulled it together, and it turned out great.
So I've got a quick question about some of the budget modifications and how things work, because I know your programs are based on how many people come in, and so if you could help me understand when to look and say, oh, this project's over budget because you had 20 more people than you expected come in, and that comes in on the income side too, is my understanding.
Right, yes, normally, yes. Yep.
Yeah, so how...
Some of those, we try and keep costs lower, so,
I know it's not always a perfect match.
user, but, in the end, it costs more to the town to run that program, but we try and hold costs down as much as we can.
Overall, I look at your budget and say it's amazing how little it costs the town for how much you actually get done, because the users really do primarily pay for most of the things you do. And
unfortunately, I'd rather not have any tax money involved, as you know. Obviously, since COVID, things have skyrocketed and cost way more money than they ever have before, and it's just a whole different ballgame now.
how much did that affect your budget this year, just having things cost way more than you expected?
It's probably increased it by 30% maybe. It's
Not as bad as the highway. I feel those numbers too.
Well, we're in a little bit of a different boat because we can generate revenue on most of our things. So, I mean, we can offset that a little bit.
Right.
But there again, do you put that cost back onto the end user?
I know, and you want lots of participation.
We're in a difficult position with that because I like to keep costs low so everyone can do it.
And you're doing a great balanced job. And, I hear about the community loving the rec department here. It's one of the things that shine. That and our beautiful highways.
That's right. And planning department.
And clerk.
And court.
Oh, yeah, I hear about the
And clerks.
And engineering.
Can't leave out the town clerk. The town clerk is the most important one.
And if you don't you don't think so, just ask me out. Right, Mrs. Munson?
Right.
Any other questions for? So one of the things we try to do, this is like 6 years ago when I first came here, is that we had a sit down with Pat, and I sit down with, at that time it was Cricket, and now it's Mike, we run like a business. When you see values, you drive it hard. If you can buy in bulk, you drive it hard. Anything of that nature. This is why sometimes they come up to us when things don't look like they're on, and say, oh, we have a deal for this, and it looks like it's chaotic, but really it's intentional. Because they're always seeking and they're always working the sales people, say, no, gotta do better, gotta do better, gotta do better, gotta make it happen. Okay, gotta make it happen, or whatever. And at the end of the day, this is why we try to keep our costs down as much as possible, why we talked about the tractor last time, we talked about the excavator now, how he's trying to envision these things going forward, just like Michael is, to move forward the value.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, but the excavator itself is actually $7,500 below contract pricing. So, I mean, we squeeze as much as we can squeeze.
Oh, and I say, you had 15,000 in his equipment reserve every now and then. And that, by the way, is a comment you can ask him because it's sitting there. I'm looking at the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Same with the rest of the last 4 years. And that's all noble. But sometimes we make adjustments to the plate, which is what those reserves are for, to kind of take the sting out of it, be more creative, so we can free up money for other things. Well, let's keep that in mind when we have the discussion later. But the other thing is that your fees are going up, not to gouge, but to be, you do your research of elsewhere.
To be more in line with everything else, yes.
And we'll see where it goes. The other thing with the programs is you try to include people, but for the most part, they're almost self-sufficient. A lot of these programs.
Close, yeah.
So it's a net
Most
zero
of them are,
cost.
yeah.
Okay, we're still waiting for the feasibility study from Bergen, the residential center, but he's been busy with this highway department thing. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very busy, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on. Who do we have next? We have TJ.
The SS4A, so that's Safe Streets for All. That's that grant opportunity, the federal grant opportunity, as well as DOT, both lending financial and staff support, as well as the MPO. And that is a comprehensive safety action plan for the first time that would be countywide, essentially. Into, I think, even just hearing some general comments tonight, I think we have a pretty good idea of where some of those corridors are. I think that's the highlight from here. The other thing was Harder, Seacrest, Emery. They would also represent the town of Lansing in a host community agreement as well as a road use agreement if needed. So I know that there had been some town council said, I have no concerns with this, but it wasn't necessarily authorized or not authorized by the prior motion.
Having the board to make sure we're comfortable with this as we move forward, to see what our roles are with each of these. On the other hand, you have to come forward with the board and move forward, and if the board says, like, go ahead and sign this, we will amend it, and so the other way.
And that's a delicate balance.
Yeah, we have an attitude right now that we win together. A lot of this we're taking, and I'm not being disrespectful, I hope it doesn't come across that way. So it's a good working relationship. Make sure that we're comfortable before we engage in a positive way with CNS Energy. And involve the different municipalities, and they told us different stories. And some of these are pertinent, and some of these may not be as pertinent because that was before the 94C went into effect. And so there is one. And this is the reality part, and I'm trying to be as delicate as I can when I say this to people, but, and we may be on the sidelines. That's why CJ stressed so much to get the solar laws in place and everything else ahead of time, right? Is to go the fact that we still want to be included in the conversation. And it may be that we don't want to have
On, so that as things change, because obviously you can't tell us what it's going to look like because you haven't seen what it's going to look like to anybody else. So just keep us in the loop, just since we're first in the loop, we should really be paying as much attention as we can, and that's why we're hiring these firms, and that's why you've been spending all this time.
And she has her own file where she keeps and she tracks the orders, and she tracks, and she tracks everything else, and so does Scott. So this was in anticipation to be prepared for their ways to, and whatever's that they do, and that leaves us to be able to maneuver where we can. Like I said, we don't know where this is going to, questions you feel free to ask, or myself, and we'll keep you in the loop as far as this goes.
I'll just, so I'm pleased that we were that far ahead, that we were asking those questions well in advance, and so at this point, I think we're well prepared.
So, with that, the board's comfortable, I'll sign the amendment agreement.
Change it from 30 days to 60, or it's 30 days to 45 days? Was there any question on that, from that?
No, I don't even.
And they're anxious to talk, and so are we. We want to make sure that we're prepared before we have that discussion.
Interest, and Harder Seacrest Emery does acknowledge that, and that they would essentially withdraw from of this process, and also of the town's respective.
We've got very different projects that come forward, and when does it get applied? How does it get applied? How does
like you're saying in the subdivision, local law, that land should be reserved for playgrounds and such sense of the land area.
But
of
the company, they can pay into this if they don't want to give up land. They have that option.
That's correct. But we don't require this for site plan either, so I'd like to make changes to the.
We need some changes in our law to really enforce that section. It's not as enforceable now unless the planning board.
Although generally speaking not. But we haven't had any major subdivision come through in a while that has or build new,
Okay.
broadly speaking, new roads and such. Future extension for some kind of open space or walking path or such. So that was an option, and they can have applicants would be highlighting some of the areas in the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan, that would where the town.
If you have any questions, let me know.
Those roads to get the town roads, it seems to work well. And you're comfortable with that agreement?
Last year they considered a lighter year, so they drew back some of the
Cost of, fuel is based, if those go up, they'll increase it, or if you get 10 extra snowfalls. I'm glad we got this agreement. I'm glad you work with the neighboring communities too, because I think it makes a lot of sense to not figure it based on what Lansing.
more so on the night shift, honestly. But like I said, we take a lot of pride whether it's a county road.
Off?
Yeah.
Any town historian, someone like make a motion?
I'll move that.
Yeah, here's the applicants, and if anybody wants to go through and make a recommendation,
Got it.
please do.
Because we need somebody.
And that you want to be the one, and somebody else look at those, and two of you can form a subcommittee and make a recommendation. But since I kept getting, she doesn't want to do it for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Okay? But it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a person who's lived in Lansing for 60 years. It could be someone who's moved here, or someone but that's something that, right now, that is the intent of what this resolution for, is to get us to the, this one, I'm not throwing everything on the pandemic or anything else, but.
Salary that's paid out every 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay. So it'd be proportional. We're not going to give, one person 6,000, the next person
It'll
6,000.
be 126.
Looking at hiring somebody, I'd be interested in working with somebody else if anybody else is interested in. Could I just double check? Andrew, you made the motion and Ed, you said? Yes. Bronwyn Losi?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes.
Oh,
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Sorry, this,
We have to have so many days where we have to stop.
Well, I also want to hear about excavators, so if I could get both of you to come up and tell, we got 5 excavators.
So why don't we go down excavator lane here, and you guys just fill in the.
How many do we have? And, yeah, I understand this is a smaller one, but how many does this town?
That we are gonna keep growing and getting bigger. We feel that we have a need for this machine that's much, much smaller than, as Ed would say, the Tonka toys that Mike has in his department. So this will be smaller on our level that we can get close to buildings, we can get around, where the leak is, if it doesn't come to the surface immediately. And this past summer, that turned out to be the case, where we dug up a lot of the park trying to trace this out. We're going to need something of this caliber. That way we don't have to tie up his machines, because as the case most of the time, and he could probably attest to this, if someone... So I think that's where we're at. We're just evolving to the point where we need this equipment.
For you to do that?
On Rusty Hill, McKinney's Point?
I forget the exact
I think
spot.
he's talking about Lansing Station Road.
I think that's one.
That's just,
A smaller machine that you would be using.
we have a 160, we have an 80, we have a 60.
Help.
Two steps down from that where you put a hammer or a plate tamp on,
Mhm.
hammer rock or compact soil. You need a 20-ton case 57 on order, which is next size down from the 60. Maybe that's going to be here at the same time if the board approves 37.
And if you look at any landscape company around, they all have sort of this similar size machine.
Okay.
Well, with a 37, no, you do not.
No, they're under.
They're under, so you need just a pickup truck.
We have 4 tractor trailer. You need those to move the bigger excavators, and they're essential. One of the things we get. Because you could.
They're asking you to drive the snowplows every so often.
You can drive them, you don't have to hook them up on a trailer, right? Excavator and wheels. Anyways.
Parks, and then even the trails, which need a lot of drainage put into them, that's something that can easily maneuver out there. Rather than taking a giant machine out and destroying the trail.
So if this does come out of the ARPA money rather than the A fund, you protect the A fund. If it does come out of ARPA money plus the reserve fund, you still protect the A fund and more ARPA money, it depends. But there'll be options next year because you're going to buy more equipment next year because you're on a cycle. That's scheduled anyways. But once again, we try to protect the A fund, the DA fund, right? The DV, the
I don't have access to those.
Old to dream. But having said all that, we're trying to keep the funds healthy, buddy. And I don't want to say just let's go spend the ARPA money, because on a bigger discussion, the Myers Park project is $650,000 on the hook for there. We're still waiting for a contract, right? It's 2022. We got 2 more years to use up the money for ARPA. I get a little bit concerned that where's this money going to go?
But this was very helpful to get an idea of where all these machines fit in, because those numbers are meaningless to me, and, I see you guys out there digging, but I have no idea which one you're digging with.
It might be a good idea, and we do this periodically, Mike, to have them come up and just take a walk through.
Absolutely.
Show them where the Tonkins are, show them where the other toys are, okay?
I know, I missed the open house because I had to work this Saturday, but
It's amazing the amount of equipment they have, but it's also amazing how they use it all. But like I said before, defend it, right? So, any more discussion, or can we just vote on this? Mrs. Munson? I don't know which order you're going to do this one.
I don't either. But I also, as I'm flipping, trying to get things straightened out here, Joe, did you make the motion on that?
I think so.
And Ruth, you made the second? Yes. Okay. Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Ruth Groff?
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi?
yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Next resolution, affirming charging duties to the Agriculture and Farmland Protection Advisory Committee and appointing members to such committee.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Now let's discuss it.
Well, I've certainly got some concerns, but I think most of what I would like to talk about, I'd like to do in executive session, because it's talking about promoting specific individuals.
I'll talk generically. And generically, we have a policy in place that if you don't get your, I don't want to say, training, right? You're off the committee for a year, right? And whatever that is. And so one of my concerns is regardless of whatever committee this is, that certain ones have done the training, but the year isn't up yet.
Okay.
I mean, you have to be consistent. Right. When you do it for that, you've got other committees where people also didn't do the training. So how you do it for one, not the other. Now, you do have some people on this committee, and the other people can voice their concerns to those committee members if they want to be represented, or they can voice them to the town board members as residents. And then I think at an organizational meeting, they should be considered to be put back on that committee if they've had all the trainings, and if they qualify, and it's been a year. Does that make sense?
Somewhat, though I'm confused, because you said that Judy did training for the Ag Committee, and I'm one of the members as an alternate, but I haven't heard anything about this training happening.
I think she was doing it for the people that didn't have the training. But I still had concerns about, well, we just can't put them on. I think she had good intentions, because there are a lot of people that had a hard time either doing the training online, which is common, and have a class here they all can do it at the same time. So that part's been done. But once again, our policy is you have to wait a year before being considered to go back on.
Right. So why are we moving this forward if the folks haven't waited a year?
Well, where do I discuss this, right? Do I discuss this we can rescind this motion and everything, but if the people on there have been off because of lack of training, then they should be considered at the appropriate time, which is when that year is up, I think at the first of the year.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm wrong, we can revisit this next month. And we have time to research this, because that was one of my concerns, is that, I heard this, and like I said, all good intentions. I said, wait a minute, you just can't put them back on. Because other members have been also taken off other committees. And you want to be consistent about that, because if it turned into a nightmare trying to track, right, this is why we have this policy. So regardless of who that person is, or persons are, if they still want to be on that committee, that's what the policy, unless you want to change policy.
I don't think we should be changing the policy mid-year like this.
For any committee. Because we want to send a message that you need to do this training if you're really concerned about it. It's 3 months away. So I think for now, we should maybe rescind the motion and not put anybody forward to be on this committee.
Though I would like to tell the public that, we don't mind farmers coming who aren't on the committee to the Ag Committee. They just aren't voting members, but to come, listen, and be available for comment, I think is a good thing.
Keep in mind, advisory committees usually are closed.
They don't have to be.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, and that is up to the discretion of that advisory board if they want to allow the public in. That's up to their discretion, and I respect that. But most advisory committees are closed session because you share things in confidence. Now, I've opened it up on the Water and Sewer Advisory Board when we did the Lansing Station Room. And we had them all in here, but that was the discretion of the board. So I think to be truthful about the whole thing is that they can be allowed. They also can talk to the members that are on the board, their concerns. They also can share with them in writing. They can share with the town board members in writing if they have concerns. But I also think that the Ag Committee met and went over the zoning changes that were proposed. So I think that's been done, and that part's been moved on.
For the moment, I think there's a chance that we'll revisit it when the Codes Committee comes up with a more formal plan as well.
Well, even then, we're going to have a public hearing on it.
Yeah.
And then the public, whoever,
I
can
understand.
still voice their concerns, so there is still time for input,
But
regardless of who you are.
But at the Ag Committee, the understanding was we could only have Ag Committee members at the meeting, and I want to at least give that committee the authority to say, let's bring more people in if we want to, because we can invite more farmers in for the discussion.
Well, they should already, if they don't know,
I'm telling you they don't.
well, then they do now. Well,
Okay.
they will, because any advisory board has that option.
Okay,
But they also have the discretion to keep it closed.
I understand that, and I'm not arguing that, I'm just arguing that we need to give them the ability to say, we want more farmers here, because we had a very small meeting with not very many farmers, and I think part of the idea behind this resolution was to get more farmers around that table talking in a circle of farmers talking.
So when this motion is rescinded, that will be the next conversation, is to have, look at, okay, the Ag Committee, or will you allow them to come in?
Well-
And if so, let them come in.
If this motion's rescinded but kind of generally kept as is, number 4 says the committee shall meet at least twice annually, blah, 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 and then shall also hold at least one meeting a year to which the general public and members of the local farming community are invited. So that's already spoken to. It doesn't say that they could invite people to all the meetings, but that's already spoken to somewhat in
Okay.
here. So if we wanted to add that, that might be the place to add that information.
Well, I would also say that we don't have a chair of the Ag Committee, as far as I know.
And we have tried repeatedly. CJ, correct? We have tried repeatedly to send out emails to people. We have tried, now I understand that the pandemic is problematic, amongst other things, and a lot of these committees have slid it aside. But, and they're coming back now. But they've had input already on the zoning. And like I said before, that's up to the Ag Committee. If they want to open it up to the public, they don't have to do it once a year. They could do every one of their meetings if they wanted to open up to the public and have other people respond.
But I'm saying we don't have a chair for the Ag Committee, and I'm going to put Andre on the spot as one of our local farmers and the rep from the town board. Would you be willing to be nominated by this group, because the town board names the chair of this committee? Would you be willing to be chair of the committee, so the committee at least has a chair from between now and the end of the year?
I would ask that Ag Committee to find their own chair.
Yeah, but they're only going to meet maybe once between now and then, and I'm trying to give an input.
I don't know, I mean, once you step over that authority,
Yeah.
I'd rather have the Ag Committee, and for right now, they're busy, right? It's harvest time. You're not going to see them until November or December.
I understand.
You know that from experience. CJ, you're going to say something?
I was just going to say relative to the concern about chairperson, my understanding is the current resolution about the makeup, or at least the charge of the Ag Committee from 2017 would still stand. Even if membership would be different, it does say that in the absence of a chairperson, the vice shall conduct meetings and other actions. And there is a vice chair person, who's John Klein.
Oh, okay.
So there's someone who stepped into that.
Okay.
I don't mean to in any way ponder it.
No.
She was jumping at it. She was like.
She is full of disappointment.
No, that's very helpful, and I didn't notice the vice chair position there.
No worries.
But thank you.
This discussion brings up a question for me, which is broader than this committee, but when we say that, whether or not those meetings are open, that's up to the Ag Committee. Is that up to the Ag Committee by law or just by custom? Is that something that we as the town board could say, and not necessarily for this committee, but we could say, all of the meetings do need to be open, we've decided we want that to happen?
Well, if this is an advisory board.
Advisory committee, right?
Or committee.
Yeah.
If this is an advisory group, it is my understanding that it is usually a closed session because there are things discussed that may be sensitive. Now, this is one of those times that, of course, we always miss guys' input on this.
Right.
When he goes fishing,
Okay.
there's always one of the things that comes up,
It's-
which we could clarify at the next meeting or before that. But that was my understanding, having done the chair of the Water Supervisory Board, that normally you keep them closed.
Right, and I understand the logic for that, I'm just curious, as we look at working groups and advisory committees and all of that, like, what jurisdiction the town board has to say, actually, we want all of those meetings to be open, or we want you to make that decision within the committee.
Michael?
So if you remember the Water Supervisory Board Committee with the Lansing Station Water line discussion, and you remembered how the entire committee was bullied, to Guy's point, the committee is there to spitball whatever crazy idea you would want to have.
Right.
Off the wall, I mean, you have engineering, you have code, you have a board member, you have highway, you might have park and rec. The freedom to express the idea without saying you don't know what you're doing. I can honestly tell you, if I have to be on a committee and that happens, I'm not gonna be on the committee.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, I'm just as we discussed it, I just don't know if it's possible. Like, it's not that I think all of them should be. I think there's real value in not being on
Right,
camera
and
in your
our job
meetings.
on the committee is
Yeah.
working for you. You're asking us to go do the legwork, the grunt.
Right, exactly.
And then come back and feed it to you.
Right.
And then your job is to share with the public.
Well, you're right.
That's the bottom line.
To be quite frank, that was a very teachable moment for me. When you realize that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this is, you know, an advisory committee board group are given a charge, right?
Right.
By the town board to do something. And then from there, they bring back their advice to the town board, and the town board engages to the public
Right.
there. And it got, it got spicy, shall we say. And to the point where it's like, who are you talking to? I mean, you try to be, but if the word was no, they didn't want to hear no. And you had, and once again, so anyway, CJ, you gonna say something?
And just, you know, in the spirit of channeling Guy Crow, did some time ago, you know, flush out some questions about open meetings law relative to committees, and verbatim quote from him is, as an advisory committee, the meetings, proceedings, and deliberations of the committee are not subject to the requirement of the open meetings law, if so indicated as advisory in the charge that creates them.
I just want to point out there's 3 options, not 2. One option is to have a closed meeting, one option is to have it open to the whole public, and the other option is to invite people that you want to come to your meeting. And, you know, invite specific people, like a bunch of these farmers on this list can be invited to the Ag Committee meeting, not opening it up to the general public, but opening it up to members of the public that you think would help your discussion.
That will be up to the committee.
I just want to make sure that there's 3 options here that we have.
And I guess my question goes to, in this, number 4, it does say that they shall hold an open meeting where we're inviting the public as guests. Is that something we can tell them to do? Like, that's...
What I would recommend is we table this until next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So do I have to rescind the motion? Or do we just table it for now?
I think Andrea has to.
What?
I think Andrea has
Do we
to.
have to rescind the motion, do you think, Debbie, or can we just table this right now?
I think you can just table it, but I think Andrew had a question or something,
No, I
right?
just said I made the motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
tabling it is fine.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on then. Resolution approving audit and budget modifications and supervisor's report. Oh, by the way, if y'all know, Mary Ellen's on fire now. Supervisor's report, you banged out clear right now. You're taking the hang of it, aren't you, huh? And did the vouchers and all the other stuff in the month bonds and everything else, plus piggyback on.
I'll move this resolution.
Okay.
I second it.
I've got a question, which is where I was starting with you on the quill order and how that worked out, because the quill order changed the format of the billing, and we used to be able to have more of a totals page so I could see how all those added up, and I was having trouble following that. So you were going to tell me more about what happened?
Yeah, so I went to Quill, and I printed out basically in this Excel spreadsheet, which just said everything that's open, and got the total. And I did attach it now to the voucher,
Okay.
which I should have done. I think I've done it before, and I just, in trying to get them all done quickly, I was more concerned with matching that number, which I did, than I was to attach it to the voucher, so I apologize for that. But
Yeah, it was just hard for me to, because they were all over the place, because they're split up by departments, and so I'm trying to find this one here and that one there, and I just didn't have time to set up a spreadsheet in the coffee room and try to match them.
It's attached now, and, I mean, this was a particularly large month.
Yes,
That way, so
yes.
That made it a little more confusing, there was a lot, and with Quill, you can put in one order, but if they ship it separately, they invoice it separately. So you might have one order and 4 invoices for that order, it doesn't mean somebody ordered it 4 different times. So that doesn't help.
I think when you send the check with all those invoice things, you might have to put an extra stamp on it because it's so thick, because
Oh, I
there's,
definitely will.
so I know what you're saying in that sense.
Any other questions? I'm going to bring a comment. Once again, to the attention of the board. The A fund, there's 8,000, unless my math, this is just quick math, $8,100 budget amount. 40,000 that is from the attorney. Now, the attorney has been asked for a lot of different things this year because things have changed, right? From cryptocurrency, other things we had to look at. All these things drive money on the thing. So please keep this in mind when we have other stuff come up. We try to stay focused on what our intent is this year. Also, you look at DA, 50,000 out of that, right? For his snow removal. This is why we want to get the equipment, if we can, in the budget out of, from a reserve or something else to protect that DA fund. Otherwise, we'll be doing budget mods again, if there's something else, or raise taxes higher than what they probably go up. I don't know if it will go up yet, we haven't got the compiling of all the numbers yet. But this is why we may use some of those reserves that are sitting on the sidelines from A, DA, whatever, that we can put towards that. Let's see what it is here. DA, you have the highway equipment reserve, 150,000. You get some of that money for the equipment for next year, you protect your DA fund until we see what the dust settles. I'm not saying this is a 5-year plan, I'm simply saying that these are extreme circumstances when we get everything off the wall. And inflation, 30%, right? Fuel, you gotta have diesel, you gotta have other stuff. And here comes Mother Nature, the drizzles, you still gotta go out and salt. So I'm just planting those seeds. Anybody else want to make a comment before you vote on this? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Reports. Andra?
The Lansing Youth Services did have a meeting. They did not write up a report. That was probably because, there's been shuffling of responsibilities from the county, their position, who's going to be the representative to Lansing. And also, not enough voting members came to the Zoom. It was a Zoom meeting. We need 5. There was only 3 of us. But we did talk about the budget and the program that Travis ran in the summer did very, very well, and he's very grateful for all the help he got from your department. So it was a good meeting, even though we couldn't accomplish as much as we wanted to.
Great, thank you. Ruth?
Mine's in the packet.
Outstanding.
Yay.
Brown?
I had minimal meetings this month, actually. The ZBA met, approved of a necessary shed being able to be constructed. Sorry, my brain just turned off for a second there. No, just like somebody in their backyard, in their tiny backyard, and so it was approved. It was an uneventful meeting. And then the only other thing I have is talking we're going to talk in the working session about what to do with those NYSERDA funds and where to commit those. So that's what I've got going on.
Okay. Joe?
I sent in a report, but I've got 3 things that I'd like to talk about. First, I sent out the final numbers that I got on the geothermal proposal. I don't know why they kept telling us what our tax savings would be on it. I kept pointing out to them that we don't pay taxes as a town, but they included those anyway. But it gave us a ballpark of what a geothermal system would cost for the town hall. And I sent that to you too, Pat, right?
Yes.
And I think the next step would be to send in, this is an idea I got from Brian, would to send this to the capital committee to look it over and run the numbers and say, how long would it take us to pay ourselves back? Is this a good investment? Is this not? Because I can't tell you off the top of my head. And so I'm proposing that, and I want to see if the board likes that idea, and we just send that to the capital committee to look it over and decide whether we should move forward with that.
That would be good, because when I first looked at this, I thought, okay, this is how much it is to install it, but how does this affect our utilities? I don't know.
Well, that's the research you need to do, because let's go down memory lane. This when Joe first got on the board, we were looking at the same grant for solar panels for the roof, and that was $75,000 at the time. And the tax status was phenomenal if we were tax exempt. And at that time, we said no. But once again, you do the research and see where's the payback.
Exactly.
Right? So if you can get some sort of payback on this, especially with electricity coming up, once again, this will come out of the A fund, and I cringe sometimes because I'm saying, where's the bleeders here, right? And having said that, well, like I said, I'm not a no. We like to have this, even though our capital, capital improvement committee is, we have a ceiling of X amount, right, minimal. But I think this is something that with the research you did, legwork on, thank you. But to see if there is a payback in how many years.
I can tell you on a personal level, the payback's phenomenal.
Well,
But that doesn't mean that the town's gonna have the same, but I'm just
you
saying,
also had tax savings also. I mean, what I'm saying is that we'll just crunch the numbers and the numbers.
no, I'm talking about a fuel bill going from 400 a month down to less than 100 a month. I mean, it was a huge,
We'll do the math.
yep, I'm just saying.
See
yep,
where it goes. Once
Absolutely.
again, run like a business, right?
Mhm.
We'll see where it goes.
Yep.
And if it seems feasible,
Mhm.
we'll see where it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask, what is MPA? What is the MPA? What is that?
That's part of the fact that Lansing doesn't have the ability to expand its gas, and so NICEAG puts money into projects that will take people off of gas.
Okay, so we would be eligible for that.
I think so, but I don't know for sure. I don't know how that program works.
Okay. 'Cause
I don't know, Ed, do you know how that program works well enough to say? You know what I'm talking about, though, yes.
So what the theory is, and I'm not throwing stones, but the theory though is that if you have other alternatives, because we're in a moratorium, that people would come off natural gas and go to this other source, and that would free up some of the pot of gas that we have, right? And hopefully that we could be using it elsewhere. I don't know if there's been anybody who's come off gas or done a significant amount. That's something that I'm pretty sure other people have that research.
But that's just a pot of money that might help subsidize this.
Okay, well, I was just wondering, when I first looked at it, I thought, well, they put the taxes on there, we're obviously not eligible.
I know, I kept telling them that.
So you had two more things, Joe?
Yeah, the planning board specifically asked that we install a screen like that over here,
Install.
a TV screen like that for board meetings and stuff, that would just be a parallel screen, because, you know, as I'm sitting here, I can see that screen, but Bronwyn's not seeing it.
What's that? What's wrong with that one? There's
So you want
a screen right
They
there.
wanted it installed up on the wall and have it set up as a permanent parallel screen. They were also talking about doing a big one up there. They just feel like for their projects, when they want to present them, one screen over there isn't working. And I don't know if they understood how this one worked. I'm just telling you what the planning board has asked specifically.
So we're gonna slide over here. So Patrick, this can something be mounted on the wall?
Well, CJ and I already had this conversation actually yesterday.
Okay?
So we probably will use that one for now, and if they object, we can talk about putting one on the wall. The only problem is that sometimes it's used once in a great while for an actual jury box. So, I think we'll just try this one on the wheels for now and see if that works, if that satisfies the planning board. If not, then we'll come up with plan B.
Okay. I will bring that back to the planning board, and I will report if they need something different.
Okay.
Number 3?
So, may I just ask a question? So was the end conclusion, you're not going to install it, you're going to just keep it on there?
We're going to keep it on
But put
there.
it over there, okay.
Okay. Or move it, that's movable. How far can that actually move in this room? Can it be moved over to here, say, or?
As long as you have a power source, which you can use an extension cord, and then CJ can move a laptop around and plug in.
Well, the idea is that would have the same, whatever that's showing, so.
Yes.
We talked about,
So-
we're gonna set up a laptop here, so we're going.
You have more of these, don't you?
We do.
So if you need to put another one,
So a laptop would just take a wireless signal and feed it.
There is some limitations to this, because obviously,
6 on each one.
to run multiple screens, you need some sort of graphics card that is a little bit better than what we have in our computers here. So there is a cost to all of this if we decide to go multiple routes.
let's do phase 1, see what happens.
Okay, I will talk to the planning board, see what they think, and we'll see how it works and
Yeah.
go from there. Thank you. And the third thing is, we had a request from our ethics board 2 months ago to make some changes to local law. I understand we were waiting until September because they might have had some other suggestions or some such, and I'm trying to figure out where that's moving.
I can give you a little bit of an update.
Okay.
They have selected another person for the ethics board, and we just found out about that today. They have a meeting scheduled in October, and I believe at that meeting they're going to start working on some of the changes.
Okay, so wait for them, is what you're saying.
I know that they've been working, Guy has gone to the last 1 or 2 meetings that they've had, and pretty sure Jamie is the chair of that, and I'm pretty sure the next meeting was when they were going to delve into what this board had asked them to.
So this person that they have in mind, is that something we can do at our October 5th meeting, or is that just the presenting the budget to the board? If you want to talk
I'll
about
put some
that.
thought into that.
Okay.
We can do it right now. No, we can't. We can probably do it at the October 5th meeting. I mean, it's going to be a simple resolution to appoint somebody to a board, so.
Okay.
And then they're on it for their meeting.
Right, and then they'd be on it in time for the October meeting that they have
This is the
scheduled.
recommendation of the ethics board.
Yes, yes.
Is this a seat that runs out this year, or is it a seat that runs out 3 months in a
I
year?
have no idea.
Okay. I want to know that before we pass the resolution.
I'll try to get that done quickly and get it right over to you, Joe.
Before the meeting is fine, thank you. So I've got some stuff I want to deal with in executive session, and I'll wait till the end to do those.
Okay, thank you. All right. So supervisor's report, still trying to come up with action plans for the airport. And it's going to be a struggle. Try to get another carrier in here, try to get the money in here, try to get a lot of stuff in here. A lot of different dynamics, once again, perfect storm, right? They estimate sometimes maybe 3 years before we can turn this thing around. And see where that first carrier would be. And to Roxanne Noble's credit, and to Heather McDaniel's credit, and to the rest of that board that are diverse, and they have some great ideas, but they're just trying to find as many different ways and get bodies in there, whether through Cornell or other ways to do this. And as this stuff opens up, we just scramble. I don't have any specifics right now. I mean, with all these different, and they just had they canceled the one this month.
So we canceled the
Air Service Board this month.
Oh, the meeting,
But
okay.
they're talking back and forth, a lot of the emails going back and forth, and they're trying to get some action plans together to keep this thing alive. I mean, I don't think it's going to go under, but it's struggling to be where it was before, especially with this new renovation. So that's the one thing. We talked about the solar webinar. There's another webinar coming up also where I think now you're going to have NICEAG involved, and you're going to have other people involved because there were concerns about where they put their poles and where they put the rest of them. And if you drive it through some of these fields, you see where the poles are, right? Okay, for the power lines, so be it. And we'll see where all this goes. Once again, uncharted water as far as this goes. What else? Oh, budget. Yes, the budget. The budget. So, we have Charmaine as the consultant. She'll be in next Tuesday with Mary Ellen. She can concentrate on tabulating all these other pieces that come in, right? We have all the different department heads bring their pieces in. Now we have to see about where the assessments are. We have to see about where mortgage tax is. We have to see about all these other things that come in to see where we are. And all the different, not just A, DA, B, B, but we also have to look at water, sewer, amongst other things. So we'll see where this goes this year. But we're very fortunate to have you, and to have Chelsea, and to have Charmaine. This is a good team. But we will schedule a meeting, and we can cancel the one on the 28th. I don't think it's going to be necessary, because you're not going to have anything to look at. And ironically, if we all get these county budgets, and the whole thing's right in there, and I go over this every year, so don't be offended, but ironically, by the grace of God, the last day we present this to the town board is October 5th. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. October 5th is that Wednesday, then 2 weeks from then is our regular board meeting. So give you 2 weeks to talk to different department heads amongst other things. You can talk to them now. I mean, when I was, as a town council person, I was always talking to them, you know, as far as this goes, the budget. So, I mean, you don't have to wait the budget season. So feel free to have your chats with them, you know, multiple if you have to, doesn't matter. But hopefully we will get something together by the 5th. We hope we get most of it together before then. And then we have to tweak it and see where the money goes, see where the rate is. I don't know. I simply don't know, but we have other options, whether it's reserves, to use it for equipment, take some of this thing off this year, we'll see where it goes. I mean, I've been staring at the 150,000 on both those accounts for 5 years. Hooray. Yippee. But it doesn't do the taxpayers any good. That's what it's used for emergencies, and I can't think of anything better than trying to come out of a plague as an emergency, so we'll see. And the board will decide, and we'll see what the tax rate is, you know? Quite frankly, I'll never say it's only, but we're 5% on tax liability. And yes, county, thank you for cutting your tax rate this year. You know, perhaps you can do it next year too, the year after, and year after. You know, I mean, between, and I'm not throwing stones when I say this, but between the school and the county, that's 92% of tax liability. And we're at 5%, and we're trying to get a new building up there. We're also trying to get a new park renovated, amongst other things. And I think, quite frankly, we're doing a remarkable job. Understood. So, on that note.
So may I ask a question?
Please do.
So the meeting that's scheduled for the 28th, I will reschedule that for the 5th. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
The words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that.
Oh, sorry.
No, would you please? You're always a step ahead of me. Would you please?
Sure.
That's okay, everybody else? Okay.
Let me ask you a quick question. What's happening with the audit report for 2021?
Audit report.
From the 0. I need to get them some more information.
You're talking about,
That's it. Is that the one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yes, there was an email that I forwarded to you about how there was certain information you needed to send to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're on that.
Okay.
We're also on the IT resolution to change that to comply with the comptroller's audit also. Change that. Okay, there's a lot of different things that we're moving forward on. And you also saw, speaking of the budget, you also saw what the highway department offered as far as a 1-year deal. This is their 3. And then we'll revisit next year because there may be a new classification for the MEOs. And we'll go back to 3 years. What I'm looking at in the budget is a 4% increase. Through gritted teeth, but still 4%. But, you know, I understand taxpayers' rates. You know, some of them may have gone up 4%, but I also understand there's a balance there, for employees. And that's across the board, up there and down there also. Not to mention if you're in a step program, I think this year they avoided, right? Pretty much, so we dodged that. If somebody wants to tackle the step program, with my blessings, I'll be right there with you, because it baffles me sometimes how that came about. I'll leave it at that. We've talked about that before. What else? Shall we, do you want to take a break, or should we go right? I already touched base on the budget a little bit in the working session, so we don't need to beat that dog again. Not that I ever. Highway Department building project, we had some discussion on that. It looks like it's 15 million is the guesstimate. We're calculating what that would be with the, once again, Municipal Solutions, what is the new rate. And we'll find out what the debt service would be over 30 years, and we'll recalculate per thousand what that would be for how much Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones would pay on assessed value. Give them a hard number. I think also in October we're going to have Bergman here. Briefly, CJ, is that what we're planning on having them come through?
Yeah, I think we just briefly discussed it, but yeah, I can certainly confirm with Steve.
And we'll get some hard numbers for people when they look at that. And then we'll come to an approval for the board, and the board approves the bond. Then I think that people have X amount of days to get so many signatures to put it on a vote. Just like they did with number 3, and would you please?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Are we in work? 3 of us are confused. Are we in work session or are we?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, this
We just
kind
want
of,
clarification.
this kind of involved him, so
It would just-
I'd like to keep it around, but you can scoop.
No, I was happy to discuss.
You got 15 million reasons to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely benefits everybody. I, have to
Thank you,
apologize.
Sarah.
I forgot to say, thank you to CJ for being here Saturday to lend support. That, to be honest, as you just hit the nail on the head, that was the question. What is this going to cost us?
Yeah.
A month, a year, whatever, what is it? A lot of people said, yes, look at the size of the trucks, look what you're trying to service. We can see where you need the improvement. There was a small minority who opposed it, but that's okay. It's all part of the process.
You also saw the value of the fact that 50 years ago, you weren't in the water business, the sewer business, the stormwater business. What else can you do, right, that you do?
Everything has increased since I've been at.
And the population has doubled.
Tripled. And it's not about me wanting to do it and thinking I should be buying more equipment because it's bright and shiny. It's about the service that the taxpayers want. So, that's the bottom line.
And everybody got their postcard.
Oh, I didn't get mine.
I did not get mine.
That's why I didn't show up.
My wife was on me and I'm like, I don't know.
We saved money back.
I mean,
It's a press release, though. We sent out a really great press release to everywhere, HCU and all the media. There's also a dedicated webpage. We posted the little video if you haven't had a chance to see it. It's right at the top of the town's website on the events page where you can see all the feasibility studies and all the analysis that went into the project, as well as a little video about it as well.
I think the original cost is in there too from a year ago, right? And so
All of
they're-
the cost estimates are there, analysis. I mean, it's pretty painstaking process to get to this point. And I would echo Mike's comments that, say, the few people that came up and talked to me about this, value year over year, that they saw value in, not sustaining the building for just another 10 years, but to consider investing in another 50 years of operations for the town. So it's anecdotal, it's just a couple quotes, but.
There was also, to add to that, there's also people from the village of Lansing that were there.
Excellent.
Which was nice, honestly. So,
the interesting thing I found, and it took me a while to actually embrace this attitude, was that if it's over 30 years, that means new people coming in are going to be paying for it also.
Exactly.
It's not just on the backs of the people that have been there all their lives. Like if you save up money, you spend X amount. Not that you would save up 15 million. In the contrary.
As you do.
Be a bit upset about that. But on the other hand, it's one of those things you see, you spread out the cost. It's like a user fee. And you're going to use the roads, you're going to use whatever. Because come wintertime, I don't think anybody really is upset when here they come again. I do know one time when I was having my grandkids making snowmen on my dock on Thanksgiving Day, and I get a truck fly through, and I go, ooh, this is going to sting today. But it was necessary, and Thanksgiving Day, they go out and plow. Because safety comes first. End of story, right? I mean, and we'll see what the taxpayers do. There are options if people want to oppose it. And we'll see where it goes. And I'm all for that. You're the one to be paying for it, have at it.
I just want to expand on that, because that's a really important point. I learned this at one of the trainings at the Association of Towns, because I'm like Pat. I'm one of those guys that wants to save up for things and pay for them up front and not take on huge amount of debt. But for the town, it's a different order, because what you want is you want the people who benefit from an item to pay for it. So you don't want to charge a bunch of taxpayers, some of whom are going to move away, for something that the next generation gets to use. You want to go into debt for these things so that the people who are benefiting from it are actually the ones paying for it, which is a totally different mindset than what I'm used to doing personally. But it's the fair thing to do. You want the people who are benefiting from a project to be the ones paying for it, not a bunch of people who, may die, may move away, may, be taxpayers who put money into the tax pool while we save up but never get to actually benefit from the money they're putting into the taxes. And it's a different mindset. It's taken a...
And we're in a very fortunate position. We don't have debt, except for the districts that were formed, that they voted on to incur that debt. There is, I mean, once again, in the past, they borrowed money to pay for the plows. One year they did $650,000 bond to pay for 3 plows. We've streamlined that, once again, I know it's 5 years, this is 14 years, where we stagger them, and that's factored into the budget every year, so you don't have these spikes where you're fighting, arm wrestling with the highway superintendent verbally to say, do you need another truck this year or not? That's already consistent with that. In fact, there's one truck that we're actually going to get rid of that just is a lemon. But it's on cycle to do that. But I think we planned as best we could and to incur the cost on the people who are going to use it.
Right.
Okay. I have nothing else in the highway building as far as this goes. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for people to see the information. What they do with it is entirely up to them.
Yeah, so just say, check out the website. It's really short, concise. We try to make it interesting for folks to engage with. And, we try to offer as much information as we can on the process. And to confirm, I believe I heard you saying that you would like Bergman Associates, who's prepared with all of this work, to attend the next town board meeting on October 17th at 6:30 p.m. to give something of a brief
An
presentation
update,
to you.
and if I'm Joe Public or Ed Public,
Okay.
how much?
Yep, understood.
And then we'll set the public hearing for November.
Understood, yeah, and we did mention that to folks. Steve Kushner, the architect on the project, did let people know the timeline, and I spoke about that as well, that we anticipated that the town would consider this at the November 16th meeting of the resolution to this event, so.
And that's the November 9th meeting? Then we'll vote on, well, on November 9th is when we'll vote on the budget. So we have another public hearing we have to set in October for that one.
I have a quick question about the postcard. Are we going to be keeping a mailing list so that we could do mailings in the future and thus are we just getting the Board of Elections mailing list and each time we do it, we just use that mailing list?
Debbie, we kind of have that list, which, thank you, there's another person I forgot, Debbie, helping with the list.
Most important person.
Yes.
Oh, you are good.
We have it on an Excel sheet, right, so.
Right, I don't know why we wouldn't just keep using that list. It's supposed to be anybody that has voted.
Right, I've got some people who moved out of the country, my house is their last known voting address, and so you send me 4 postcards, 2 of which go in the garbage because those people aren't, so I won't be able to give them to you, have you knock them off the list if you're keeping a list.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
I think a lot of them, Joe said, Mike Mosley, board current president.
Right.
That's fine, I just want to, there's no point in sending me duplicates, I'll hand you a couple of cards and say, these are duplicates, and then you can pull
I
them
mean,
off.
really, I don't know.
Whoever
If
has
you
the
bring them
list.
in, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, put them on my mailbox when I get to it.
Okay, that's fine, I want to, make that available to other people too, if possible.
Just one other person, I forgot, Jenna, obviously helps getting the word out to the school through the Gmail. Whiteboard. I think we did.
Did she do the voiceover for the?
That got tweaked. So she did it, and then we changed it just because of the speed of the drone and a lot of things that basically what she said. I don't know.
She was happy to town.
Yes.
You auto-tuned her.
She was a trooper to begin with.
But she's very good at it.
Yes. So, yeah.
No, excellent.
May I just have a question to ask? So you're having Bergman come on the October 17th meeting to do the presentation, but you're also, my understanding is the 17th is going to be a major meeting for the budget. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. it'll be brief.
October 17th is a Monday.
Or whatever the 19th,
Oh, okay.
whatever date it is,
Yeah,
sorry.
it'll be a brief presentation. I don't think it'll be, because all the information's out there. And they don't even have to come. I mean, we basically want to know what the price is, amongst other things. If they want to do a brief, well, I think most of it will be discussion on the budget.
That's all I was,
And the
let's
other
not
thing is,
forget
by
the
way,
budget.
You know, once you get this on the fifth, you can share your comments back and forth before then. On that. Okay, so we covered the NYSERDA grant. Do we have anything else to talk about?
Well, yes, because I need to know what to do with it. So we have to write a letter to them saying, this is what we plan to do with the money. It can be, it doesn't need to be itemized and super specific, just kind of what the town board wants to use that money for.
And when do you have to respond back?
November something.
What are our limitations? What types of things can we spend it on?
Weren't you going to put it towards the geothermal?
I don't know if we're doing the geothermal.
Right.
Well, I think we're
Well,
gonna-
there was a suggestion about I'm looking up to see if I can get more information on this, about an audit, an energy audit of town hall. Would that be useful even if we were to do geothermal? Is that something that we should use it for?
How much is how much is the actual grant?
I'm confirming that what I have on the top of my head is correct, so give me just a second.
When we talked earlier, she said it was around $5,000, so.
Okay, if that's the case, personal opinion is that 5,000 is not going to make or break this.
No,
geothermal, right?
no, that's why I asked.
It's going to be like 4 months.
It is 5,000, that's
So
correct.
we'll crunch those numbers, right?
Yeah.
For geothermal, that's what it's good to pursue, right? Because that's a long term,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Personally, I think the energy audit would probably be where the money is well spent. What do you gentlemen think about that in CJ?
And
I mean, I personally be I love wearing my coat today.
We've been,
On my
we've been
side.
through what we were just discussing. We've been through an energy audit.
Okay.
And
Here?
I would recommend against it, just.
Okay.
We insulated the concrete wall of the highway barn and put tin on the outside when it's like a freeze-haul barn on, of course, you have your concrete. We literally insulated the outside of that while there's still a thin layer of metal with no insulation. That's what we did.
It was not a worthwhile process, in our opinion.
So how about how about we come up with
There
a
was not money well
options?
spent.
Well, I need help coming up with those. So that's what,
So
do
Bronwyn's
folks
asking for
have,
ideas.
that's, yeah.
All I know is my office is 90
How much-
degrees in the winter.
Yeah, let's do something with the
5,000.
heat,
Yeah.
like, put thermostats in our offices
Can we have
or
the building
something.
heating and cooling work properly?
Yeah.
That would be.
I think, yeah,
I'm all for that.
Can you have different zones and different, like on
We've
one side
got-
of the building and not?
There are zones, and you guys keep playing with them back and forth because some of them don't work.
Well, they don't.
No.
Just is,
They
there's
don't.
no consistency throughout the whole building. It's really bad.
so it sounds like improve the efficiency of the
That would be one.
climate control
Yes.
in town hall.
It's, you can just draw a line right down the middle of the hallway, basically. This side gets hot, this side gets cold to the sun on this side, right? Because okay, so consequently, it's 75 over there and it's 65 over there. In the wintertime, it's just the opposite. We're warmer, they're colder. Is that how it works?
Okay, so I think, as far as I know, that is enough that I can bring that, and I'll get feedback, make sure that that's specific enough, and then we can
Yes,
take the money, and then you
generally,
can,
the north side of the building is freezing cold.
Except when you.
well, it's north, I mean.
I have a whole turtleneck collection that is not available for me to wear. I actually my window cracked.
Okay, so it sounds like this is, a-
And we have to run,
What are you doing?
and
Yeah.
every other department has running a space heater 24/7. It's so cold.
And sometimes in the summer, it's so cold, we open the
So-
window to get the
so
heat in.
if I do this, and it works, and I think it'll be a letter that Ed has to sign officially, are we okay with
Sure.
that general thing happening, doesn't need to
Yeah.
come back for resolution?
Yeah.
And then, who do I tell to run with that?
It might have been Swayze's, once we get the grant, might be Swayze to do it, or somebody else to do it.
Well, I feel like someone who
Maybe
works-
somebody else.
I think somebody in the building who works here who can be the point person to talk to them makes sense?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right, so I will let you know. There we go.
That's like being voluntold.
I'll just say that when I had the consultant for the geothermal come here, and I was telling them as much as I could about the building, Pat happened to walk in and be able to answer all the questions that I could. He did, he literally just walked in on us and had enough time to answer all the questions. It was perfect, because you knew way more than I was going to be able to answer.
And maybe that's the answer to fix our, I don't know.
I don't know.
But we can, I mean, that's not gonna be by
It's not
winter,
gonna
but
happen
maybe
this
something
winter.
else
Well,
can
it's-
be,
It's a
so.
start, and
Okay.
we'll put this under mood mitigation. The moods are a little bit dicey here, so we say sometimes. Okay. Let's move on then. Are we okay?
Yeah, that'll, and if this isn't specific enough, I will be back in touch, town board.
Salmon Creek parcel, do you want to go into executive session and talk about this?
Well,
Can
what
you
do we-
snap one?
Oh, I did,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
D.
Bell Station. This, you saw the letter of the Bell Station. Evidently, we have to give our approval, or it's advised to give our approval for this, as I'm reading this letter.
And I'm a little bit confused on the map here. Because what it looks like is the DEC's buying property outside the acquisition that the Finger Lakes did. The Finger Lakes bought that yellow polygon.
The DEC's only buying a portion, correct?
Yeah, but they're buying a portion of what the Finger Lakes bought, and if you come up here, I'll show you, but it looks like they're buying a chunk from the power plant as well.
Once again, we have 90 days to respond, August 22nd, so there's not a rush.
I understand they're not buying this, but it looks like they're buying this chunk, which is not part of the Finger Lakes.
Right, it goes over where the tax parcel was, yeah, I see that.
Finger Lake purchased the whole thing, I mean, that's
No,
the lakefront.
they purchased up to this yellow line,
Right,
which
yeah,
is,
the Finger Lakes Land Trust
Oh,
was the
so
tax
that's
parcel,
part
and
of
then
the
this goes
parcel.
over,
which
so.
which gives them access to this road, which makes sense, and I understand that, I want to confirm that that's actually what we're agreeing to.
How about we table this and look at it in the next week?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had no idea that this land was in play at all, and I'm not objecting to it, I just want to know what I'm agreeing to.
We have time.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on then.
Yeah, I think they made
To the,
Just a line
to the October 19th meeting, Ed?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a typo, I don't know if
Yes.
typo's the right term,
Just wanna
or
get
whether
this all
that's an
straight.
actual thing.
No, that's a good catch, because that is part of the power plant property, not.
Yeah, they made,
DEC is just like, yeah, we'll take that too.
Yeah.
But I can see how useful it would be to go over that far, and, you know,
Right.
there's some real value there for that sliver.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
well, maybe there's talks going on between different parties.
There might be, I just don't know, and this wasn't clear as to what was going on.
Salmon Creek
I'd like to do that in executive session if I
strategic
could.
planning. Shall we go over that quickly?
Sure.
Is it necessary to go over it quickly? Is it necessary to go over it tonight?
It's not necessary to go over, it was meant to be for all of you to kind of, just to step back a little bit and
Yes.
say, this is the progress we've made on some items, here's what's been completed, here's what's in the process. To just give you a sense of, also you should have received the draft work plan as well for the
Yeah.
coming year, and that basically breaks out, you know, how we're intending to allocate department time and resources, essentially myself and John.
Let's just make a comment here, we try to stay focused on the plan, right? I understand other stuff comes up unexpectedly, I get that. And we've had numerous ones, but we also have seen what's happened with our, and this is, I feel very blessed we have him as our attorney. But we see how these things get burned through, right? How much time you've taken up, Pat, when things come up and you have to do the research, or CJ, and how these things get pulled off. Or Mikey, I mean.
Or Mrs. Munson.
And absolutely, of course, Mrs. Munson. So all these things are, once again, these are all noble ideas.
Or Mary Ellen, I forgot.
Judge Howell, I mean,
He's not here.
and the other judge, I don't know where we're at, right? Anyways, my point is that you put this plan in place, these things come up, I understand they come up, and we do other things like try to mitigate traffic. Whatever, I understand we try to do that, but please keep in mind that it bleeds some of this down, and we're into August, and we've burnt through the budget on some of these accounts. There's a cost to that, right? And once again, I'm just being the voice of be careful, careful, because we don't know where these pots of money are going to stay. That's all.
I just want to say for the record, look at all the yellow and green that's in this packet that she gave. I mean, that's really impressive, and I don't want to pass over the fact that there's a lot of green and there's a significant amount of yellow, and for a comprehensive plan at this point to have this much green and yellow in it, green being things we've done, yellow being the things we're working on right now, that's really impressive. And I don't want that to go unnoticed. Most of this plan is in green and yellow right now.
It hasn't, but once again, we've got a lot of cans that were given to us down the road, right?
Yep.
And we're going to address them. And the taxpayers will say yes or no, but the comp plan had to be done, and the zoning has to be adjusted, at least reviewed. And this should be done every 5 years, right? We should be on the next comp plan. But let's get this one behind us, especially with the RA and the ag. That'll be a huge part, and then we'll concentrate on the business hamlet and all the area stuff as you do the other multiple things.
But we're doing good. We're getting a lot, and I know that's your department to a larger degree on this, though some of the other departments are doing some of the other. We're getting a lot done.
And I just want to say, without John and Heather and Scott.
Oh, and you have a part-time safety inspector too now.
Yes, and we did just bring thanks to all, that we did bring on Brian Butner to assist us. He's been the acting code officer over the time of Caroline for a while. And so now he's coming to us very, very part-time. It's really, helps Scott take a vacation, go on breaks, just sometimes things come up.
He also pays for himself when he does things. So it's not like, once again, she also runs a liquor business because she gets fees, when she tries to be reasonable and do that. So shall we slide into executive session if Joe wants to talk about
We've got a quick question about this first. CJ, I noticed a lot of question marks on this. Are they just sort of like questions to the universe? Like, what is happening here? Or are they things that the town board needs to give thoughts, advice, guidance, decisions on? Or are they more just like, we have to figure out what this means?
Yeah, and I think that's, yes, they are kind of, I wasn't here for the comprehensive plan process. So some of these I can't, speak to what the intention was. I mean, I can always, rifle through all of, we have, by law, the records management officer will be thrilled to hear me say this, but we follow the, whatever it is now, the LGS 01, and we make sure that we're not getting rid of any of the records associated with it. That said, they're voluminous and such, for me to be digging through handwritten comments sometimes can be, laborious. But in any event, there's a lot of questions about, what are really fantastic ideas, right? But just kind of wondering, who was envisioned to carry this out?
Got it.
Who did you want planning to work with? What did you have in mind? When I see, something like provide incentives for maintaining healthy, diverse species of trees. That's, I'm not saying it's not a noble goal.
Sounds great.
I have no idea who would be implementing something like that or what somebody had in mind.
And so are you wanting us to help figure that out, or is that just kind of guidance for as we move on to the next comprehensive plan, making that more clarity? Just curious.
This is a really good question, and we can, over the next couple of months in our individual meetings, we meet with each month, we can dig into some of this a little bit, have some translation in it, and then I also want to hear from you all, what's in here that you're like, CJ, this is not getting done and this needs to happen. We really need you to allocate the resources there. Like, I know when I look at transportation goal number 1, which is basically the only one, there's just a handful of transportation goals. It's this, transportation corridor study, which we've been working on getting to this point for years and have finally established some really good opportunities in, dare I say, inroads with, DOT and our own highway department, county highway, ITCTC, the MPO. So it would be great to hear from you, kind of, what to do more of, what to do less of, what you really see as a priority. And I'm guessing I'm going to hear a lot of the same thing from each of you, but it's really meant to catalyze conversations, especially relative to the work plan. I don't want to be allocating our very limited and precious capacity to things that, you know, you're not, you know, want necessarily seeing as the same priority to advance, so.
Yep.
You know, really trying to align your strategic goals, capital goals, and, you know, comprehensive plan goals into, you know, something meaningful.
Okay.
Well, I'm willing to sit down with you and go over this. Being on the comprehensive plan committee, I think I can answer some of the where did this come from type questions and kind of help clarify that without you having to go through all that stuff.
So keep in mind that if something's increased, something else has to be decreased. Because you only have so many hours, so many resources. And
It's
your
fairly
fire-
well, I think, articulated here in the work plan of how we intend to spend our time. I mean, you know, some of it, of course, is out of our control. We don't know if we're going to get 10 subdivision applications next week, and maybe it throws us a little bit out of whack. But, you know, we have enough experience between myself and John to, you know, understand the ebbs and flows of a department and town the size and that is dealing with this many projects. So this is kind of our, you know, best estimate of, you know, what we think that we can get done in the coming year. So we want to make sure that's advancing. I think by and large, we have advanced the goals that you want us to be working on, but it's just a chance to check in, you know, at the 5-year point and be like, hey,
Makes sense.
what do you think? How's it going? What would you like to see?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have one more thing before we go to executive session, and this is the clarification. I had a motion before to approve hiring Paul Silvestri and Harder Seacrest.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
We had a motion on July 20th to hire Paul Silvestri and Harder Seacrest. We did a consensus tonight to accept the amended contract. Do we need a formal motion to do that, Mrs. Munson, or not?
It was just I don't really think so. We already approved to have you sign it.
And that's fine, I just want to make sure that.
I think it's okay.
We're comfortable with that, we'll move on.
I have a quick question. I got these screenshots in my mailbox with no note, and I don't know what they're about.
Okay,
Should we discuss that in executive session?
That's fine, I just don't know why I got them, and so I don't even know what to ask.
Yeah. What is it?
those
Executive
screenshots.
session.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we'll just say it, yes.
that's fine, I can do that.
So we're going to go into executive session.
I have 3 different reasons. I want to go in,
Possible acquisition of land.
that's one of them.
Possible, okay, I don't make any.
Wait, let me get my sheet out here.
There's
Yeah.
also,
I want to talk about that.
So you're talking about number 3.
And I
and
want,
that.
and then I want to talk about this, which would be talking about the conduct of individual people. That one, I have to look at it.
All right,
Does that make sense to you, Ed?
that's fine. That's fine. I think that covers it all.
So it's
Okay, well, if
talking
you're
about
going to have me
the,
write something, you need to have a conversation other than just with the 2 of you, because I have no idea.
I understand, I'm
going
not,
to speak, so we're going into executive session to discuss possible purchase of land.
So that's number 3, okay?
Also, possible lawsuit.
yep.
Wait a minute.
Is there a
That's
third?
number 1.
Okay, thank you. I was too far down the
And
list.
number 2,
So 1, 2, and 3.
There you go.
yes.
Boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
Is everybody fine moving right into executive session?
Well, wait a
Wait.
second. What does this fall under?
Is that 4?
I would say possible lawsuit.
Okay,
Okay.
that's, okay.
Do we need to take a 5-minute break? or-
Well, we need to, for a couple things, we need to have a motion in a second and a
I
vote.
saw-
I
saw
will
the-
do that. I simply want to make sure that we're moving into executive session right now.
I'm moving that we go into
Sure.
executive session for items 1, 2, and 3 on the green card here.
Okay.
Second proof of that.
Okay. Actually, I need to have the time.
Does anybody need to stay? Probably Pat.
Yep.
The rest of you, you're fine. I'll ask, does CJ need to stay?
I don't know.
Maybe for number 2?
Nathan does. and she
I
does.
would give, I give CJ the
Well,
option to
we,
stay.
we need to have a vote
We will.
first, okay? I'm just,
Yeah, but they just want to run, like, people were leaving.
No, nice of them that you guys
Do a sign right here, get it done,
So
yep.
what am I doing here?
Yeah, that's over here.
And this is our secret also.
Thank you, that's nice.
Do I need to?
It's just, it's personnel stuff, promotion on appointment of a specific person.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to say it?
I don't think it needs to. I just wanted to-
There it is, yep, I was like, I know it's in there.
But I want you to work it out tomorrow, Friday.
Okay.
Okay.
She's like, I'm not.
If we move, we can,
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said.
Do you have a quick second? Or you guys go
Let's take a break for a moment, after we go.
Mr. Munson, we would like to make it official before we just, go off the
Okay,
rails.
so, yeah, so we need to vote on going to executive session.
Yeah.
Joe, Ruth, for number 1, 2, 3 on the green card, and now my time has changed, sorry, 8:44. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Do I turn off?
Okay.
Yes, please.
We're gonna run silent now.
Okay.